Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Kyrogeniz, and my boy Loker here with the King's Court content team. Say hello.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And what are we doing today, Mr. Loke?
We're just going to go through a quick little quarterfinals preview, look at all the teams and matchups, and just do a little discussion, some content for the boys.
Yeah. And speaking of, congratulations to everyone who qualified. But unfortunately, this is where it gets tough because some people are going to have to go home
Yep.
eventually.
Rest in peace to the teams who didn't make it.
Rest in peace.
Win
Should have won
more.
more.
Should have won
Yep.
more.
All right, let's carry on.
Yep. Let's move to the next slide. All right.
So this is our bracket. Yeah.
just a quick look at the bracket. Pretty much everyone has access to this, so everyone should know. We'll jump into our first matchup here.
Which is going to be FNAF and PTM, I believe, which
Yep.
is our first picked
Correct.
matchup.
Yes.
Honestly, I think it's a very, very strong first pick from Fighters in the Trick Room. It is on. It's against Jamark, who is a notoriously strong and competitive coach, but it's very much out of his element this season. And for anyone who knows Jamark, you can tell that immediately looking at this roster. While Vaughn is using a very comfortable roster, one he's very familiar with a lot of mons he loves using. So
Yep.
I think that is going to be paramount in this series.
Yeah, I don't feel like this series is going to be particularly close. I think Jamark has his work cut out for him. I think Vaughn has a better team and is equal in stature, at the very least, as far as battling goes.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you look at the stylistic differences, like the Vaughn is known to play hyper offense. He loves to do. If this is like a typical Jamark team, I'd probably have a little more favor
Yeah,
towards him.
Jamark went
But
offense this season, which is
he
odd.
did.
Not
You know,
usually what he goes for.
I respect the idea. I think it's worth being ambitious and branching out, trying to get used to the meta. However, the whole first half of the season, his team looked terrible. And it's gotten better, but it's still not the greatest.
Yeah, I mean, and he made playoffs too. So,
Yeah, we can't
using a
disrespect
new
too hard.
style, making
Yep.
playoffs is good. He'll have another chance in the next in the losers bracket, but I think this one for me is wrapped up on the turn on top 5 turns in Trick Room. And
And
based on
honestly,
what I've heard from other people, it seems to be
a
the
consensus.
consensus opinion.
Yes. I think this all starts with the first highlighted mon of this matchup, which is going to be Tornadus Therian.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Tornadus Therian just looks great in almost every matchup. I would even call this somewhat of a cop-out, but it just looks like it has very few answers, can be flexible in what it wants to bring and what it wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the best mon on a great team.
I would argue it's the best. It could be considered second best, depending if you're a Valiant lover or not. But this mon just has so much flexibility to enable mons like Valiant. Like, it could be offensive and take over games with nasty plots, Alex subsets, something like that. But it could also just be a knockoff pivot that's hitting super hard, keeping the rest of your team healthy, excuse me.
Yep.
But
got Regenerator, one of the best abilities in the game. So it's just,
if not the best.
Yeah. Great Pokemon, great matchup. It's good every week. And then we'll look at PTM's best chance, what we think is the best mon. And it's another obvious answer. It's Meowscarada.
I mean, it's the Proteamon. It has some of the best coverage. The knockoff is uncontested.
Yep.
Nothing really wants to switch into it. You could say Valiant, but
yeah, nothing wants to switch into it. And it's faster than Tornadus for what it's worth, and has stab ice moves. It's got stab everything pretty much.
Yep. Presuming it's a Scarfmon, it has speed control for the entire game, which is always nice.
Yep. I'm a Meowscarada lover. It's just the rest of the team that doesn't seem to stack up. And I think it's going to be an easy match for FNAF.
I would be inclined to agree with you.
But I'm down to move on to the next matchup. I think this one was the most self-explanatory of the bunch. Maybe the second most, but up there for sure.
We'll get there.
Yep. So looking at our next matchup, we got Boss Meryl versus the Explorers Guild Emissaries. What do you think about this matchup?
I think I'm in the minority when I think this, but I think Explorers Guild Emissaries has a pretty great matchup into Boss Meryl. A few things I want to point out is Iron Handsmon is really hard to switch into for Boss Meryl. Even Gliscor is terrified of that random ice punch coming out. You don't know.
Yeah, pretty much uncontested coverage for sure.
It is. And Moltres defensively can eat a lot of the biggest threats. Not to mention the combination of fire and flying kind of mogs this team.
Yeah, fire flying's great. I actually had someone tell me that perhaps a Brave Bird set could go crazy, but I'm not
It
sure how
could.
legitimate that is.
I mean, it could. Look at Decidueye, Tauros,
Yeah,
Darkrai will die to
yeah,
it.
I'm a
It
huge
does a
fan of
lot.
Moltres, and obviously, they have my core of Greninja and Hands, so gotta love that. Uh,
Yep.
I really like the team on the right, Emissaries. But I'm also a big fan of Darkrai, and I'm a big fan of Iron Crown, and obviously Gliscor, and the team works well together. So I think this is definitely one of our closer matchups, definitely closer than the last one. But let's take a look at two mons we think are going to be big this week.
And as you mentioned, that Gliscor is going to be absolutely huge this week. Toxic is so hard to switch into. The only toxic immunity is that Reverum, who doesn't like the ground moves. She's kind of forced into an air balloon, which is fine, but it can get broken by another move. It's really hard to deal with. Earthquake spam, hazards, you can stall out after she gets the toxics up. It can be a great pivot. Hey, you may even see a Swords Dance Facade set. It has a lot of power
It's
this
got a lot
week.
of options and a lot of power. Even if it just does the put the fries in the bag
Yep,
toxic set, it's still very, very good
it is. It
into his
is.
team. So let's take a look at the other side. We got like a classic mon here. We
Yeah, he
got we got
is.
Fat Mike, big hands.
We just talked about him a little bit. This guy literally has he can have 4 moves and hit everything in the game super effectively outside of Terra Ghost last year, which
Yep.
is obviously something to be scared of.
Yeah, it's gonna be a stop hands from trading +1. I think in this matchup, you don't want hands trading more than one mon. You know it's gonna get
Mhm.
something no matter what. It always does. Um, Maybe you can like fish around with some weird switch ins. Like we looked at before. We have sorry, went
Going
the
the wrong
wrong
way.
way. We have Moltres here for Flame Body, so there could be some weird switch. Or no, that's his team. Sorry,
That's his team,
there's not
yeah.
really any weird switch ins actually. Looking at this side, I mean, it's really just Terragloss Glastier that's going to be able to stop this guy. I definitely think Hands is huge, but you know, Gliscor is a great mon as well, and it's definitely going to be a close matchup. Is there anything else you
It
want to say on
is.
this one before we move to the next? That was a little spoiled there.
Uh, it's okay. I think there is a little bit more onus on Explorers and Emissaries to make this matchup favorable. Just because I think Boss Barrel has just a bulky core, it's hard to break through, but he definitely has the better breakers in my opinion. Between Greninja Hands and Moltres, I think he'll just be able to
Yeah,
punch enough holes for a Reverum sweep, which is always scary because, you know, Boss Barrel's Reverumancers aren't that great either.
yeah, you got that Terra Reverum sitting in the back. I mean, it's always going to threaten something. If the wrong set of Pokemon are left and they're chipped in the right way, there's
Yep.
always a chance for a sweep, and that could take one
Glasgow's
game.
ever low.
One game turns into two, and then Boss Meryl's sitting in the bottom bracket. So
Yep,
you never know. It'll definitely be a good game to watch. All right,
it
let's
will.
move on to the next one. Next, we have Silphco Syndicates versus Sandband, Jeremy's team, Kyrogeniz' team. Why don't you give us a little bit of insight, as you've probably already been looking at this matchup quite a bit. What do you
You
think
know,
about it?
first time we played, I was crashing out a little bit, I won't lie. But there's
It
one thing I
happens.
noted that is it does happen to the best of us, you know. It's one thing I noted, and it rings true to this day. Where's the bundle switching?
Yeah, billions are bundling. That's what they say.
They will be bunding this week, and there's nothing that's going to stop it. Between Bund and Ogrepon, I don't see many answers on the board,
Yeah,
to
there's
be quite
not.
frank
There's
with you.
not. That's my biggest thing about this matchup. I think aside from the coaches, I think just on paper, there's not bundle switch-ins. And I mean, there is, I guess, one, or you could talk about Araquanid is it can, but it's about threatening it back out. And
Yeah.
I think Billions will be bunding this week,
There's
for
a big
sure.
problem with the Araquanid because he wants to be water bubble to not get burned and be useless, but he also wants to be water absorbed so he's not getting mogged by Ogrepon or Bundle just shooting off a random move, right?
Yep,
So it's kind of
absolutely.
hard for Araquanid to fill both those roles. That being said, I do like Silphco Syndicate's offensive core. The Quaquaval and the Arcanine, especially, do a lot of work into my team.
Yeah, I
It's
think
just a
I think
matter
the
of can you
offensive
get them
core is
in.
good. I also think that a problem I have with this team in general is I think the flexibility is very low. I'm a big fan of teams that utilize Terra in our system to gain advantage in prep, and I think his team it does do a lot well, but does it in a very straightforward manner.
Yeah.
It's doing one specific thing a lot of times, and that is enough. You know, he beat you in the first matchup. That's enough to get through. But I think the more you're prepared now, I think the better it should look for you. And then again, there's just no answer for Bundle. That's the biggest thing with this matchup. So we'll look at two Mons. I mean, we already highlighted both of
I think
them,
we
but
already did both of them, yeah.
yeah, we'll look at both of them. I mean, Bundle, no switch ins, and then on the other side, it's the only switch in that could be possible into Bundle.
And the big thing about a Rack Win, it's not even the fact that I can switch in. It is the sticker upsetter, which is how he beat me in the regular season. And it does beat down my spinner, which is kind of a big deal. So it's kind of hard to get rid of Webs. That being said, Altaria is always there to do the job, but
Yeah, you have
Webs
more
did
than
come
one
in
way.
clutch.
Did you have Altaria the first time you guys played?
I did, yes, I did.
Did you bring it in either game?
Yeah, I brought it both games. Yeah, I had it both games. It
Yeah,
did
so
keep the Webs down.
there are options. I tend to, if both coaches are equal, or if it's not a huge mismatch, I tend to lead towards the team that have more options in terms of preparation, and I just think Sandband has more options to bring to the table. Speaking a little bit on coaches, from what I've heard, Temple, the coach of Silph Coast Syndicates, has never won a playoff game.
Playoff series, all right?
Or playoff series. I meant series for what it's worth. But when he does eventually win a series, I will look at it differently. But for now, I probably will have to go with the Sandband on this one. Proven winner, better team in my opinion, more flexible. But not to say that, I mean, the last matchup went the way it did. So maybe another crash out after this one. Who knows?
Who knows? We'll just have to see.
We'll just have to see. But another exciting matchup. We'll move to the next one. I think we talked about that one enough. This is our last matchup of the Clefable League. And it is Psyduck, Psycon versus Deer Defenders.
This is another one I feel is kind of lopsided, I'll be honest. The Rain team has finally started to click. We're clicking that Wave Crash Terra Water button. It's going great. Life's good. Unfortunately, you're against the Zarude guy, and I don't think it's going to be enough to get through it. Between Zarude, Terapagos, and Latios, it's kind of a hard core to punch through. And when your best answer to stopping a sweeper is Jet Punch, and the Armor can tear a grass, you're not having a good day. You're really not having a good day. I think it's not ideal. You might honestly see a Psyduck experience because it could be useful. I doubt it, but it could be useful.
You think Psyduck's coming?
Yeah, I'm not going to say it is.
I mean, if there's any coach who's going to bring that, it's going to be Cardinals 29. I think he probably has the record throughout every season of bringing the lowest point mons consistently. I don't know if that's true, but he definitely, I see a lot of games of Cricketune, and I'm sure Psyduck has been in there once or twice. Muck, Muck and Copperajah get their play here too.
I do have to say though, Palafins has Palafins. Deer Defenders has a pretty good matchup regardless, because I think the offensive threats of Kilowatcho and Archaludon can do enough to break, especially if Palafin can take some hits onto that Tingaloo and make it a little bit lower and not such a free switch in. And once that Terra Terra Shell is what it's called, is gone, I think it's a lot easier for this Floatzel endgame to come through. But
yeah, I mean, that's what we're playing for. We're playing for the Floatzel endgame in most situations. Archaludon, I think, is actually pretty good into a lot of what Psyduck wants to do. But we could take a look at these two mons because we're already kind of touching on them both. Let's move on to the two mons. So we have on the left side here on Psyduck, we have Zarude. We talked about it again, and we'll go into more detail in a second, and Archaludon, and I'll let you take the lead here on this.
Zarude and the Rain team, it's a fundamental mismatch there. The only thing that can really threaten is the Hurricane spam, which is great and all. But if Zarude gets a single Trailblaze off, I think he's going to start sweeping pretty easily into this squad, which is always the scary part. SD Trailblaze, it's over. It's over, in my
absolutely,
opinion.
I agree. And Archaludon is just the best overall blanket answer, I think, to the team. It's got coverage to hit a lot of different things, body press to hit the things it can hit, especially. It's got electric type coverage that's obviously great. I mean, everyone knows what Archaludon does, but it seems to be it's his best answer in terms of answering everything that comes with it. Comes with the side of Psyduck here. Anything else you want to touch on this one? Another good matchup, but I think a little bit less close than the others.
I think it's definitely more winnable than the Palatine one if I disregard anything but the teams. I think this matchup is definitely a lot more executable because range is so easy to click buttons in.
Yeah.
It's really hard to not put out tons of pressure. But
yeah, Cardinals 29 is a very good coach, though, and I find it hard to believe that he would lose to obvious Rain. I mean, obviously, there are things you can do within that and other factors, but in terms of just clicking buttons, I think Cards will have plans for that, and I don't think he'll fall victim to the click buttons rain squad.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yep. All right, let's move on. That was all 4 matchups. So now we're going to look at what we think. This is our prediction. So we already touched on them, but we'll go through one at a time. So, I mean, this is the obvious one for both of us. I mean, I have 2-0 for FNAF. You do as well. We already talked about it. I think this is the most lopsided matchup in the top Clef League. I think this is the easiest matchup to predict.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's very hard for me to see angles which Jamark did get out. Not, but that being said, Jamark will try and find those angles. He's very creative in the builder usually. Not always a good thing, but if anyone's going to figure out the angle, it's him. But I think the offense is too insurmountable, honestly.
Yeah, it's just a matchup diff. It's not. It doesn't even have to be a coach diff. It's just. I think the matchup is too hard. I think the team is, and then again we went back to the fact that Jamark is playing a style he's never played before and is trying to learn and adapt from that. So.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to the second one here. We actually both have Psyduck winning this one. I have it at a 2-1 only because Psyduck has proven to be a 1-1 merchant. And I think maybe there might be a game where one thing happens and the Rain team does get to click those buttons. And but overall, I think Psyduck's going to prevail on this one.
So I doubt the one game's going to be taken. I think going into it, you know exactly what they're going to. It's not a mode you can turn off the rain. It's always rain. It's always going to be rain. And his cards will be prepared for that.
Yep. All right, so number 3 here, our third seed matchup. We both have, obviously, we knew which answer was one of us was going to have, but I also have Sandban winning. Again, I'm just not going to take Silph Co Syndicates until I see it proven that he can win a playoff series. And obviously, we have Jeremy or Kyrogeniz that has a great track record of playing and a great team. Not as good as your other teams have been, but still, you figured it out towards the end of the season. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the lack of flexibility that Silph Co Syndicates brings. So that one we talked about a lot too. So we'll move on to the last one here. Was there anything you wanted to say on your team? I think we kind of went over everything, right?
Nah, we're good. I'm coming for you, Temp.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be. He picked you, so he wants that smoke. Let's see if he gets that smoke.
He wants that smoke.
And finally, our first disagreement of our predictions. I'm taking Boss Merrill, and you're taking Emissaries. You want to explain your position as you picked the lower seed?
You know, I think people are counting Josh out because he went 0-6 in the last 3 weeks. Stuff happens. You know, people will get busy. They're not committed as much to prepping at the time, but now he's in playoffs. It's time to lock back in. And I think he has a favorable matchup into Boss Merrill. I think he could do it, and I think I might get crucified for this. I think he is arguably the better player, better battler than Boss Merrill. So we'll see how it pans out. It's going to be close regardless. So I'm excited for this one the most.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What you thought your most exciting matchup of these 4 is, aside from your own. So I guess of the last 3. Yeah, I'm very excited for the bottom matchup. I think this is I would say this is probably the closest of the matchups for me. I think it could go either way. I think both teams are good, both players are good, and I totally agree with the idea that you said that it's time for Josh to lock back in. I heard he was locked out the last few weeks, and it definitely showed in the teams and everything that was brought, but I think it's time to lock back in, and another great player that has proven that he can win in playoffs as well. So
fun fact, first time they're playing ever.
Really? I did not know that.
Yep,
that's crazy.
First time they're ever playing. So this will be a fun one. Long time coming.
It'll be a fun one. I'm sure there'll be some banter, as there always is between these two, and
naturally.
It'll be a nice fun matchup. All right, so let's move on here to actually, we got one more thing. Let's talk about our 99s or our guarantees. I mean, goes without saying, but just so it's out there because we're going to be tracking points. Actually, Jeremy, did we decide what we were going to do for the winner? Are we going to do a roll? Was that
we're going to do a roll. You're going to be the scriptwriter for season 5. To be S5 scriptwriter.
Yeah.
The first place is going to get it. If it's a tie, you both get it, of course. But that's what we're going for.
So everyone lock in your picks before this week kicks off. We'll have the format by the time this video goes live, and we'll be tracking points, and the winner will get a cool roll for the next season or for the foreseeable future. So,
I'll break down the points really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Break them down. 1 point for the correct pick, 1 point for the correct series score, and then if you 99 it, you double whatever you would have made. So if you get 2, you get 4. 1, you get 2.
So your max amount of points per week could be. You get quite a bit here. You could get a lot. So and these 99s are important because if you get that, you get 4, and 4 is basically a whole bracket right on the first week. So those 99s are very important, and make sure you're picking those scores as well. All right, we're good. We'll move on to the next.
We're good. Let's move on to Gengar.
Yep. So we got Gengar, which is the league that I reside in, and this is the bracket again. We won't spend much time on that because we're going to go into each matchup. But we'll start with the 1 seed versus the 8 seed here. Rotom Wash versus Mesmerizing Mudkips. Would you like to
Oh,
talk about a little bit about this matchup?
this is so we just talked about the other rain team. I think this one is a lot better of a rain team. It has more capabilities outside of rain, and I'd argue its rain mode is stronger. Though I will say, neither one of them likes Terra Overcoil for some reason. That mon's a demon. That's a digression. I think Mesmerite and Mudskips is probably his best matchup in the first round. It's pretty easy to
Totally
see
agree.
the
Yeah.
flaws. I mean, it's Gastrodon holding up the fucking globe, man. Like there's nothing to be gained here
There's just
to
there's
switching
just
into a rain
nothing
mod.
there's
There's
nothing
nothing.
here that answers rain effectively consistently. There's too many threats. I mean, I played against this guy. There's too many threats to deal with. There's
Yeah.
too many. I mean, the other rain team is good, but this one is like pretty much as good as you can look to get in a draft league. It's got everything you want. And it's an end of matchup with very low answers to these big, powerful water moves and flying moves, and hurricanes with 100% accuracy, and swift swimmers and floatzel terra. There's so many like
There's literally two
answers, or there's so
switch-ins.
many questions and no answers on the side of mesmerizing mudkip. So I would argue this is our least close matchup that we have
I
out of
agree.
everyone in
And I
both
gotta say,
leagues.
we got a Terra Hatchrim and a Diglett over there, man. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing?
I mean, I looked at Diglett and I said, what are you doing here? I mean,
What are we
what are we
doing here, little
doing?
bro?
Yeah. And then, I mean, I talk about how important flexibility is, but like when you look at the Terra types on Rotom
There's only
Wash,
two.
yeah, well, you look at the side of Rotom Wash, you have impactful Terras from 3 different Mons, and you look at the side of Mesmerizing Mudkips, and you have a not
Gastrodon.
fully evolved Pokemon and a Gastrodon holding up the whole world in this matchup. So
Yeah.
it's just, again, flexibility roster. It's not close. And then obviously you can just see from the record. I mean, one is plus 22 with no losses, and one is plus 12. So it is definitely the 1 seed versus the 8 seed. And I don't want to shit on, Mudkips too hard. I mean, they had a good season. They're in
Jagger has a good
playoffs.
season to get here, obviously.
Yeah.
Gengar was very competitive to get the playoffs, so I
Yeah.
have no disrespect to it at all.
And
But
there's
someone
and
had to
it's
get picked at its
yeah,
his,
and it's
right?
not even that this person has specifically a bad team as a whole. It's just it's not as good of a team, and it's also not a very good matchup. So it's like
This rain matchup is so bad for it.
yeah,
The
it's
only saving grace is the fact that you have Tyranitar and a Pelipper. If you can make Tyranitar slower than Pelipper very comfortably, and you can win that Weather War just straight up. Like you can just eat any move Pelipper throws you. I
yeah,
played that matchup against Mystic. It's very good. That's the only saving grace you have right now. There's no
yeah,
one really to take advantage of it.
and even without consistent rain, I mean, we still have some big heavy hitters on Rotom. Like even if we're playing with a few turns of rain, or we can chip Tyranitar down and then eventually bring out rain in the late game,
Yep, it's over.
Pelipper has ways to stay healthy. I'm almost sure it gets roost. I think I've seen it roost before.
Yeah.
So it's gonna it could roost up. It can get back its health. Tyranitar can get worn down and then eventually go out. And then there's a ton of different options. So all right, let's take a look at 2 Mons. I mean, again, we went over all of them, but we'll start with Floatzel. I think Floatzel's that's the sweeper, right? And it's got Terra Grass.
Yeah.
So it's not only is it a sweeper, it's good into everything, but it's also the only thing that consistently and easily brings down a mon like Gastrodon. So can Gastrodon Terra? Yes, but then it's leaving it. If it Terra's, I think it has Terra Ground and Terra Flying. If it Terra Flying,
yeah.
it's getting hit by ice. If it's Terra Ground, it's obviously getting hit by water. So although it'll almost assuredly take Water Absorb, but then to the Terra, Terra Grass is going to be hitting it with a Terra Blast, and that's going to be enough to absolutely destroy it. So
the other mon I did want to talk about from Mesmer and Mudkips is that Arcanine Hissu. While the Flare Blitz does not look great this week, the Head Smash looks pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Head Smash Close Combat will do a lot of work this matchup, and I think that's going to be his best way to try and punch a hole before he loses all of his mons.
Yeah. So, and then if we want to go back and just look, I mean, it's not the fastest thing. It's got some competition for speed, but it definitely it hits everything and hits everything hard, and it's got some things to hit. But again, it just seems like an insurmountable matchup. But
it does.
It is worth looking at other mons. But I think Gastrodon is definitely this guy's best bet as far as answering the billions of threats that will be out there for him this week. Best of luck though to Mesmerite Mudkips. Maybe we could see some miracle happen.
A big upset it would be.
Yep. Let's take a look at our next matchup here. Our 2 seed versus our 6 seed. This is Untitled Ducklet Team versus Cooking Yanma. Is a very, very fun looking matchup. A pretty close matchup, I think. But although one team looks better than the other, but I very much know Cooking Yanma's coach, and I very much trust his ability to battle. I'm not saying that the guy who's 503 is not as good at battling, but I don't know him as well as far as coach goes.
There's one thing that jumps out to me immediately when I look at Cooking Yama's roster. It's a problem I have on my roster, and it's the lack of a dark type naturally. And he doesn't even have the flex glue of I could Terra Dark. This guy just has no dark type, period, which is
Yeah, we have no
terrifying.
switch. No switch into future sight. No switch into
And
psychic
there's
moves.
two really strong future sides in the enemy team, and I think they're both going to punch holes over time. It's really hard to play the long game against this squad if you can't switch into a future swipe, especially when they have Sylveon and Wish supporting if they want it,
Yeah.
and Mudsdale, Corviknight. Like, these mons can all just sit there and eat everything, or Regenerate on Mienshao, like Regenerator Slow King. It's going to be
And
tough for Cooking Yamas. They're going
yeah,
to pick up the
for
offense.
what it's worth, I mean, he does technically have two future sight switch-ins in Empoleon and Uxie, but the problem is, one, we have Terra fighting on Monkey Dory. That could be a problem for Empoleon, but
Hmm.
how do they threaten back is the question, right? Like if we're hitting a future sight and something switching into it, I don't think either of those mons look particularly good into the team as a whole.
Hmm.
And then, so what are we really like doing? I do think Uxie is better than Empoleon in this specific matchup. Um, but
Pidgeysha
again,
gets toxic that's cooked.
yeah,
It's so over.
yeah, and that's a problem. And then also you look at like we have T Wave spam with Slow King. There's a lot of like problems that can arise.
Scald spam could be very problematic too into this team.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously we don't even have to, I mean, we're not even talking about the top of the board. You have, what I think is maybe arguably one of the best mons in the game in our format, which is Raging Bolt. I think that mon is great. I mean, you could speak to it yourself.
It's
Won a
pretty
league with it.
great,
So
incredible,
yeah,
honestly.
won
I think
this
it's very
league.
one-dimensional, but it's very incredible what it does.
Yeah, it does its job and it does it well. And then that's even before you bring up like Ogre Pond, but not to. There are things on the other side that you are always playing for that late game. Oricorio, Reverum, looking at like a sweep or something like that, just trying to break
Mhm.
down the enemy team. So there are definitely aspects for both sides to win, and I think another good game, close game. And we'll see which side we take. But let's look at two mons that are pretty impactful this game. And again, I'm sure we touched on them at some point. Yeah, so we have some
We kinda
Monkey
cheated a little
Dory.
bit.
Yeah, we cheated a little bit because what we should have put here is I should have put Future Sight
Future
as a
Sight?
move because any Pokemon
Yeah.
that click Future Sight I think is very good. I think both of these have their own kind of separate positives and weaknesses. I think Monkey Dory being able to tear into fighting could be big, and then Slowking is just a great Pokemon with, like you said, T Wave and all these other different options as well. So, and then Cooking Yanmas, we have the better, what we think is the better of the two sweeper options. I'll let you talk about Oricorio.
So I think Oricorio has the best opportunity. It's not the greatest into like Slowking. It's gonna have to be broken before this mon comes out. But once it comes out, a Fire Revelation Dance can hit a lot of the squad pretty effectively. And once it gets start down to the wire, you can start tearing ground and punching out like the last hits. I don't know. I looked at Reverum in this matchup, and it's just not gonna break a lot of these mons. Like, it's not gonna break Slowking. It's not gonna break Raging Bolt very well. It can with like high horsepower, but
Yeah, Terra Dark High
it's
Horsepower or something to that
Terra
effect.
Ground. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah,
get
that's what I meant.
mogged though. Is the problem? Like, you're gonna take a Draco and a Thunderclap, and you're almost dead already in your sweeper, which
Yeah,
is
and there's a lot of another thing you mentioned too. There's a lot of big defensive stats on the enemy
yeah.
team. Like I believe at Avalugg and
Mm-hmm.
Mudsdale, and I believe there was one other one and Corviknight.
The
So there's three
Corviknight. This
options
gonna
for
eat
big
him.
defensive. Even if you're hitting it super effectively, you're very rarely going to one shot it, and every single piece of damage that Reverum takes is one step closer to a death. And if you're playing around that sweep, it could get very dangerous very quickly.
That being said, Oricorio, it definitely has to be Terra Ground if it comes this week, or else it just loses the Raging Bolt unless it has like 3 Quiver Dances up, which
Yeah.
is definitely a hard thing to ask.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Getting two up and with how
yeah.
fast games are played, it can be hard if you're playing against competent players, which everyone in the playoffs is going to be.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I don't
Anything
know.
else you want to mention about? Yeah, go ahead.
It's a tough matchup for Dean. I
Yeah,
will say that.
yeah. I have faith in my boy Dean. But yeah, I mean, Untitled Ducklet team has a great team, and it's a pretty good matchup for him. On top of that, so rest in peace, the straw poll, Dean. You got beat by the straw poll this week. But
Rip
best of luck to both
Pack
these guys.
Watch.
Yeah, best of luck to both of them. Let's move on to the next matchup. Our second to last, I believe. Third
Yes. So
seed.
we got Crafty Scrapties and Chinchino's Casino. I like both these rosters on paper a lot, and they both have some really good mons to highlight. Like, I think if we look at the Casino first, Darkrai looks incredible in this matchup, and Hydrapple looks incredible. The offense matches it pretty well. Like, Quavo can sit there and beat up Tinglu pretty comfortably, and isn't that scared of Metagross because it is neutral to fighting, which is very important.
Yeah, it's huge.
That being said, Scrafty and Metagross have a very strong offense of their own, and Darkrai does do not Darkrai, excuse me, Dragon Ball does do pretty well into this matchup. Like, there's no actual like fairy type, right? Like, there's no fairy type, so you can look at an offensive Specs Draco, Specs Shadow Ball. Like, you're starting to take names if you go like an offensive Dragon Ball this week.
Yeah, I think offensive Dragapult is definitely the way to go. If you're looking at the enemy team and you don't see a fairy type, it's time to hit dragon moves
Yeah,
as
and their Dark
as much
type
as
is
possible.
Darkrai. Like, that's not even that bad of a Shadow Ball click, right? And you can just spam U-turn if you're that worried about it. Like, it looks
Yeah,
really
I mean
strong this
Darkrai
week.
is deceptively tanky and it is not very effective as far as the
Yeah.
move goes. But it again, you don't want your Darkrai coming in and taking hits from
Nope.
because if that Shadow Ball turns into a Draco Meteor and Darkrai switches in on the wrong turn,
You're dead.
whew, yeah, you're
Even
dead
just a
and you're
U-turn
slower.
takes like 30, 40, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Even you could even go mix if you wanted to with Dragon Darts. I think the name of the move is.
mhm,
You could do a lot of different things. I mean, that's the Dragapult way, right? You could always do a
it is.
bunch of different things with Dragapult. So I think that this matchup is one of our closer ones. I think both teams are very
Dude,
good. I yeah, it's close. I like it. I'm a
D-Dance
huge Hydrapple fan as well.
D-Dance Power Herb, Phantom Force with acrobatics and D-Darts looks so shice this week.
Write that down. Write that down.
It looks so shice this week, I'll be honest.
Taking
But
notes. Yep.
that being said, I think Darkrai is a very obvious Scarf bring. I think
Yeah.
either sides looked at this matchup and said, "Yep, Darkrai's gonna have Scarf, and we're gonna deal with it."
Yeah, Darkrai's gonna have Scarf, and then you have to either choose to match in a different way, or you got to match the Scarf and be faster than it. One or the other. You gotta make the decision.
D-Dance up, baby.
And I think that the thing is you're probably not taking the Scarf on Dragapult because you're not really threatening it enough to
Mhm.
really matter. So you probably want to get that dance up and then be faster and then from there we would be in a good spot. So
Yeah.
let's look at two mons that we decided are the most important here. For Crafty Scrafties, we have no
The
other one
mascot.
but Scrafty. And then on the other side, we have Hydrapple. So I'll let you take the lead on talking about these two here.
So Hydrapple defensively is really hard to deal with. It's really only Draco from Dragapult, and if he's like an AV set with a generator, Fickle Beam is going to start swinging and hitting for the fences. It's really hard to break too, right? Like, you're
Yeah,
gonna
very
have to
hard to break.
bring. It's hard to break and it's hard to switch into. Like, the only answer is like Articuno, and
Yeah,
it's a
and
pretty Articuno is a great one. I'll be
do you
honest.
want Articuno though in this matchup? I'm not
It,
100% sure you really
I'm
want it
not
aside
convinced.
from
Yeah.
the fact that you need to kill. And there is I think Scrafty has poison Terra, so you
Yes.
could poison
Yes.
Terra Blast it.
Doesn't this mon get Earth Power though? Like, it's not like the greatest thing in the world.
Oh yeah,
So
it gets Earth Power, it gets Fickle, it's got Fickle
yeah,
Beam, it's got Giga Drain, it's got Recover, it's got
Hydrapple
Regenerator.
low key farms this
Yeah.
matchup in
You
the right
really need
circumstances.
a fast, strong like a bundle or something, or it doesn't have to be as strong as bundle, but you need something with fast,
Doesn't must
strong
fun.
ice coverage to really get at this thing. Its biggest weakness is its typing, and I
Mhm.
learned firsthand. I played against it in, I believe, a different league where I did not have ice coverage, ice stab at least, and I could not break it. So,
Yeah. That
definitely,
being said,
yeah,
whew, Scrafty, dude, Scrafty. I like it a
Scrafty looks
lot.
good. Yeah,
You think Moltres is gonna sit there and follow this guy? Yo, Shed Skin.
we
We're
got
gonna
Shed
sit there and boost
Skin.
in your face.
Yeah, yeah, and then
And it has
eventually,
Terra Poison and Fairy, I believe, are the options, which are
yep.
both really good this week to stop the threats against it, like Quable, like Hydrapple. Like, there are a lot of ways Scrafty can set up and get free turns to start breaking. That's really what he needs to do. He needs to set up the way for an end game like that D-Dance Dragapult, like Metagross coming in and starting to bullet punch clean the end game. There are ways for Scrafty to punch the holes for the rest of them.
Yeah, I think Scrafty's a great bring. I think Hydrapple's a great bring. I think Hydrapple is a better bring overall,
Mhm.
just because there's very few consistent answers on the other side. And Hydrapple's the kind of Pokemon, if you don't put it down, it's it's gonna regenerate, it's gonna come back, it's gonna recover, it's gonna Giga Drain, it's gonna be healthy. So we got to figure out what item it's holding, and then we got to figure out a game plan to deal with it from there. It could hold an Ice Berry, it could have a Poison Berry, it could just be AV. You never know what the thing could bring.
Yep.
So definitely
Swing
singing
and
the praises
Menace.
of Hydrapples in this matchup for sure. I got nothing else to say about this matchup. It's another good one.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on to our last, but not least. This is my matchup this week. Just played 2 weeks ago. It was a 1-1. It
Mhm.
was a close game. Let's see what do you think about this matchup? I'll take a backseat. I'll talk after.
Dude, this team looks very similar to a team we saw already.
Yes,
And I
both
think
teams
this
kind of look
team,
similar.
they do. They do look, it's very interesting. But I do think the matchup is slightly in the favor of Morgan Raw. I mean, Iron Valiant on your team, I really only see Gudra, I guess. But if it's a mixed Valiant, where's your answer?
Yeah,
I don't
Valiant's
see it.
great.
You could say Talonflame, and I think that's a pretty solid one too. But that mon isn't that bulky as it is. But Talonflame, Heatran, Crocodile, even Belly Bolt, man. Like where is the way to answer these mons? You got to out offense them, in my opinion, which I think is harder for you to do than for him to
Generally a harder
overwhelm you with
thing for
offense.
the Tornadus, or generally a harder thing for the non-Tornadus, non-Iron Valiant team to out-offense
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
Iron Hands is a great start. Though,
yeah,
and
I'm
Greninja also, I think Greninja's amazing this week.
yeah, Greninja gets the benefit of being one speed faster than Tornadus, which is a huge pain in its side. It gets super effective
It
coverage.
is.
I think Tornadus is not super great into my team. I mean, I'm sure it'll be brought because
Yeah,
it's
it's
Tornadus.
Tornadus.
But I do think I have good answers for Tornadus. The thing with Valiant is it's the limit of the trainer, right? So it's a limit of the person prepping it. It
Mhm.
always has options, and the problem is figuring out those options before it takes 2, 3 Pokemon down with it, and the match is over.
Yep.
As far as I mean, I think the games were very close. It was probably the closest and most fun series I played. I'm very happy to be playing against this guy in round one. I think our matchup is close. I mean, you said it's slightly Morgan favorite. Obviously, I think it's slightly my favorite. I think I'm more misplayed than anything else in the game that I lost.
Mhm.
Um, we'll see. We'll see what Pokemon come. I mean, I was very
Yeah.
surprised Heatran didn't come, and
I was about to say,
we'll move
that
on to
was
the
my
next
big thing.
screen of our
You
two
kinda
mons to
skipped your best
watch.
mon,
Yeah,
didn't you? Like, I think he
I
mm.
played Mox. I mean, I told Gumi this, so it's not like I'm leaking my prep. He knows it, but I think Heatran was very good in my team, and it did not come. So I think if
Hey,
Heatran comes, it could make some decisions tough for me. You know
how
what
do you
I'm
break
bringing in.
offensive heat, ran?
Yeah, how do
Like,
you live a
how do
hit
you
from
yeah,
anything?
excuse me. Like, if it's AV offense, like, what do you do to this guy?
Yeah,
Like, it's hard for me to fathom what's coming in on the Magma Storm, the power gems, the flash cannons,
yeah, and my team did get better. I think Talonflame can resist some of its moves.
power gem.
Obviously, Power Gem is an option.
Yeah.
You have like Gudra, who is a big
Yeah,
special wall
it
that
is.
can eat
That one's
that
good.
stuff, and then you have Dash Bun, which came last time, and Heatran wasn't there. So
No, but then you're bringing Darkspawn,
yeah, yeah. Then you're bringing Dash Bun,
and
and
you gotta tear it to not die to the steel move. It's like,
yeah, and then
are
what
you
else?
really
What else
committing
is
them
it
with the
doing? Right?
Darkspawn?
Yeah.
Exactly, it's
So
Darkspawn, man.
I think both sides of the matchup are going to be great. Gumi, I look forward to playing against you. This will be a fun match. Don't turn into a bug this time. Wasn't so
Yep.
good in the Jester 1v1. We end up playing against each other anyway. So,
It's true.
but yeah, I think this will be a fun matchup. So let's look at our overall predictions for this side of the bracket here. Um, first off, we have what we consider the furthest thing away from a close matchup here. We have
Yeah.
Road and Wash both taking a 2-0. I think both one seeds in both leagues are very, very favored this week. Not much else to talk about here. Let's move on
And
to
as
the
they
second
should be.
ones.
They picked their matchup. They should have the best matchup possible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. If we're looking at even at a 2-1 situation with the first pick taking their whatever they want, that's already a bad look for the one seed. There's got to be a matchup out there out of 8 teams that is going to give you the best chance to win.
Before, but yeah.
Yeah, before you even get on to the Pokemon battles. So let's move on to our second one here. This is where we differ. I'm going to take myself. I think the game will be close.
Naturally.
And
agree.
you're taking the other side of the matchup. So it's good. One move in between. It'll be very close.
It genuinely might come down to like 5 turns of play, right? Like, I
Yep.
think it is genuinely that close of a matchup. Like, whoever has the better end game sequencing, who has the better read, I think that will make a big difference in the series.
Yeah, it
I
takes
think
one or two
ease of
reads, or one or
execution.
two mistakes, one or two wrong clicks, not
Yeah.
soaking the switch. Gumi, you gotta
Not
soak the
soaking the
switch.
You gotta soak the switch, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a close matchup. I'm excited to play it, but we already talked a lot about this one, so we'll move on to the next one. We're in agreement here. Actually, it's down to the same score. I think Cincinnati's Casino. I think they take it. I think I like their team a lot. I think might be another one of our really, really close matchups
Yeah.
for a 3 and 7 seed.
This one was tough. This one was
yeah,
tough to decide. I
very
think
tough.
Crafties could take it very easily too. It really depends on how the prep comes out. Like, if there's no solid Hydra Lancer, if we bring like Screen's Pull for our Scrafty and our Scrafty's not gets like randomly picked off, I think his matchup goes very much in Cinchino's favor immediately. But
Yeah, I think the ease of play is definitely on
yeah.
Cincino's side.
It's the same argument for your matchup, in my opinion. Ease of access. It's like so much easier for them to figure out their win con.
Scrafties has to work harder to get the matchup they want. Honestly, I was a little surprised that I ended up playing against Gumi. I thought maybe he'd want Gumi's matchup more, but I guess he decided he wanted Sriracha's matchup or Casino's matchup. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it pays off for him. And then finally, we have the 2 and the 6. And we differ again. Wait, this is incorrect. This 2-1 is incorrect. I believe it's going to be 2-1 the other way.
Yes.
Yeah. But we're taking the other teams. You're taking the upset here. Do you want to explain why you're taking that upset?
I think it's actually backwards. I definitely picked and Ducklet.
Did I do it backwards? Because I'm like pretty sure that I picked Dean's team.
I think you
as well,
had us backwards. I definitely picked Ducklets.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If you want to explain the upset, go ahead.
Yeah. So I talked about it when we were talking about the match. That's why I was confused because I'm like, I definitely did not pick Ducklet. I believe in my boy Dean. I think the matchup does have angles. I think so. In my head, I believe that Dean is the better battler. I mean, obviously the record is close enough that it could be close. And it's just about Dean getting that. He likes to play for these late game sweeps, so it's just about him getting to that sweep. And I think he'll do it twice. He'll definitely do it once. We both agree on that. The question is, can he do it twice? And I'm going to say yes on this week. So that would be my upset of the week over every other matchup.
I don't think so. I think this matchup. I know he put out a poll to pick his matchup. Honestly, I think he might have picked this matchup regardless. I think this is a good matchup for him and probably one of his better ones available outside the Mudkips. So I think he's going to take it home. I almost hit 2-0, but I didn't want to completely disrespect Dean.
And you got to think that he'll find one, at least. I mean, I'm certain he's going to find at least a way for one
I won't
to
say
get
certain.
in.
I do think he will get one. I think it's very possible he gets 2 out, though, in 2 close games. I think that's very possible.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of Dean's games this season have come down to, does he get the sweep? Does he not get the sweep? Is he getting... Because when you're playing for these sweeps, a lot of times it can all kind of fall apart. And when your whole game plan is based around that, it can get kind of scary. So
yeah,
we'll see. So let's go on to our last page. We have a panel of 6... our 299. So yeah, almost forgot about that too. So you're actually taking the 99 on the Ducklet squad here.
Soul read. It's a soul read.
Yeah, and I'm taking the obvious one of Rotom Washed. Very, very confident in that. So let's move on to our last page here. There's a lot of stats on this page, but we'll just kind of go through. We have 6 people, 2 from one league and from the Gengar League and 4 from Clefable, all kind of giving their predictions. And then we just have some stats broken down. So I'll let you go through the 4 stats and we'll kind of go over it.
So there's 2 matchups that are very obviously favored. It's the 2 1-seed matchups. We already talked about how they should have a huge favorite, but 6-0, 6-0 is pretty crazy. In the same vein, the Ducklet and the Casino matchup, the last 2 we talked about in Gengar, are very close, which makes sense. That league in general was close.
Yeah.
So that adds up to me. Again, this 99ers are the same 2.
Yeah, very confident in Rotom pulling out that dub and FNAF as well.
Let me be clear, I am also confident. I just didn't want to be the same. Let me be clear.
Yeah, you're definitely you took the soul read. It could pay off big, If you get that point, that's no one else's point. So
exactly,
you're pulling out in a huge lead, or you're falling way behind everyone else. So and then I think these uncertain matchups we all kind of went over, but I think they're very interesting. So we have the Encino matchup, we have the Silphco matchup, which is yours. We have my matchup against Gumi, and then we have Dean's matchup at the end, which are pretty much the 4 matchups I think we talked about as being the closest overall. Very, very surprised. Well, I guess I'm not too surprised, but I'm surprised that we were predicting 2-0s more than 2-1s in this cash series. The other 3 are kind of a lot of 2-1s because you're at 18, 18, 17. This one's very low. So either people thought it was going to go one way or people thought it was going to go the other way, and it's not going to be close. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of shakes up. And we're going to track, hopefully next week when we do semifinals, we'll have be able to track who's in the lead, and we'll have a leaderboard. But these, I believe we're going to try to keep these 6 on the board the same every week throughout this season, and then maybe we'll switch it up in the future. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, right?
Yep, I think that's all we got to say. Unless you have anything else you want to shout out, I think we're good.
No, I wish everyone the best of luck. I'm really. Oh, what would you say is your top matchup you want to watch? Is it that Duck versus Cook?
I think Duck versus Cook or BM-EGE are my top 2 matchups.
Yeah, I would say BM versus EGE is probably my top matchup to watch. I think Duck versus Cook is going to be great too. But yeah, I wish everyone good luck. Everyone had a great season. I'm sorry the people who didn't make it here, and congratulations to those who did. And we'll see you next week for another go around of this.